All right, so let's get kicked off here. We're going to be, this is the session on using the templates with advanced techniques. So it's within Bezlio, as we mentioned, there are a bunch of templates baked into it. And a lot of those templates, after you kind of see how they work, it's a very simple process to walk through. But there's some advanced stuff you can do within the template subsystem. That I wanted to kind of take the opportunity to show, because a lot of people, this is going to be essentially new to them. So what we'll do is we'll start off with showing an easy way, and that'll be using the simple chart walkthrough. This is not a simple chart walkthrough. We'll just pick a chart, put it together, see how it works, and then you'll know how every template works at that point. But then we're going to go through advanced column selection, which is more of a technique of kind of really, refining exactly what data is going into the chart and how it's presented. And lastly, we'll get into accessing the hidden templates. As I mentioned, we've got, all the templates, the entire library of templates available, and I want to show you how to get every one of those. All of this we're going to be doing using the Excel plugin. The Excel plugin is new as of, I think, 2 weeks, or maybe just a week ago. And just for a little history on it, we always supported working with Excel. We used to only do it using ODBC connections, though, because you can talk to pretty much anything with ODBC, and it was convenient to use that for Excel. But doing that did require some setup steps about, setting up a data source. We also used .SQL files to communicate with that, the Excel spreadsheet. So it was just, a lot more work than somebody might just want something really simple. So we're going to be using this template, or this plugin. If you've never used it before, this will be kind of a good introduction to it. Very, very simple. But what's neat about it is it not only can read an Excel spreadsheet, you can also write Excel spreadsheets with this plugin, which can be kind of a nice, neat way to, take data that might be coming from some other data source and snapshot it into a spreadsheet that you may have kind of interacted with. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to have these guys connect to an FTP. Now, we do have this on the back of your lanyard. You should have credentials for this, and we didn't try this internally here, so we'll have to make sure that this actually works. If it doesn't, it's going to be the end of the world, but all I'm trying to do is show you what the source spreadsheet is, and actually let you play with it if you want to kind of see different data show up. So what you're going to do, you're going to first go to this FTP server listed up here, and being mindful of the port number at the end of it. And when that pops up, your username is going to be Mainspring, and your password is going to be Mainspring 2017. So is anybody able to actually get that connected correctly? You got that? Okay, so let me actually, we actually want to go into the folder, so you put the folder icon, and then type that address. But that's the sort of easier way. Then you grab your file. So to everybody to test that, it would be a reasonable assumption that I'd be asking you to put that in your web browser. But we actually want to put this in a file browser backlog. This is where you want to put that URL at. What that'll do then is it'll give you a folder you can drag that file in. When we went this way, yeah, it's almost like a track. I bet the server is not presenting it. But it does compare to the oh. Yeah. Yeah. Right. This is a web other time. We've actually, that actually different from those sort of things. But this is not like a critical aspect to it. So I was going to show you the spreadsheet anyway, but also kind of see what the thing is. We were going to cover anything on the FTP server, and it turns out I put one spreadsheet out there, so it's not really a huge deal. But if you did make it into there, I guess just note that you've got there's different subfolders out there, demo 01 through demo 25. And on the back of your lanyard, you also have a demo and then like XX, whatever your actual demo number is. So kind of just go into your subfolder if you're going to make it in there. And I'll pull this one up on here so we all can kind of see what this is. But the biggest thing is we've got an annual sales spreadsheet in there, and it's a very, very simple spreadsheet. So actually, let me pull that up on this computer here. Okay, so this is kind of what, if you weren't able to get in, what it looks like. You just have folders in there for each account, and inside of there we've got an Excel spreadsheet. So this is literally just a shared network drive we have within our offices at Wadsworth. So we're kind of using this as a bit of an illustration just to say that this is basically how it is. Any Excel spreadsheet that's within your network you can kind of get to. And I'm going to pop this spreadsheet open, and you can see here what it looks like. We have a year column, and there's both 2016 and 2017 data in there. We've got a month column, which we've got formatted with the 3 characters dash the year. We've got sales, gross margin, and a note column. So, and this is formatted in what I consider kind of a simple format, where the first row is your titles of your columns, and then the data follows after that. This formatting of an Excel spreadsheet works very well with being turned into data, but really with this plugin, essentially what's going to happen, as you'll see in a moment, is this sheet 1, kind of turns into a database kind of within Bezlio, just like anything else we would be working with. The other thing I would note is I've formatted anything that I want as a label. I've formatted it as text. I didn't really specifically have to do that in here. I think that the way I set everything up already was text because these were started with a character here. But if you're ever thinking about a chart where you want the axis labeled, make sure it is a label. Otherwise, the template kind of assumes that it's a value, not a label. So I'm just throwing a little dashes in front of it. You should be good to go. Anyway, we noticed that the sheet name is sheet 1, and the workbook is marked as shared. Now, this is actually an optional step, and you might not be familiar with this, but if you look in the title bar up here, it says that it's shared. And the way that's done is under the Review tab and under Share Workbook. It's just this checkbox right here. All of this does is it prevents, if somebody had this spreadsheet open from back in Wadsworth, and I tried to open it here, of getting the message about somebody else already having a spreadsheet open. Or the other way around, somebody's doing it in Bezlio and somebody in Wadsworth tries to open it and getting that message. This little checkbox just makes sure that it's fine. It'll kind of merge the changes between both users. So it's a simple thing to turn on, and it works. It solves a lot of issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through in Bezlio and turn this into an Area 2D template. So, and this is where if you have the system, go ahead and log in, and I'm going to pull up portal.bezlio. It's going to bring up your Bezlio portal. Next, you want to enter the credentials on the back of your badge. For the username, be like demo01, for example, bezel.io, and then the password is just using so it's demo01. We got 25 of them right there. It's actually whatever the part username is. So like if you're demo01, password is demo01. Do you have the Chrome web browser? Edge would be okay as well.
Here's from such something from nothing. Okay.
Next is trying to type it. Edge should be fine to do. I mean, Chrome goes to that, but
which always
they're very able to get in. Everybody.
then it creates it's an independent browser. Right.
Yeah. I can react to the file. You're seeing it. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I can't see that. But you can't find anything else.
Sure.
I read it. So we can verification. We'll try to do multiple applications. Yeah. But to me, I don't know that. Right. I'm always kind of flipping between like I hate having like all these apps.
Good. Anybody else have any comments? That works. That's not critical, but the KCC claim, like maybe FTP wasn't liking that, so I think that may have been part of what's going on there. So, we've kind of talked about a little bit. When you first log into Bezlio, these are demo accounts. We set all of them up, and this is what you see kind of out of the box. You set up a brand new Bezlio account today, where you get a little getting started into your home screen by default. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a new bezel, and just kind of keep things clean since we've got something already on the home screen here. We'll actually create a new panel as well. So under panels here, click where it says Add Panel.
They're just between that tool.
Nope, not at all. Nope, nope. And then for panel name, let's just call it and sales. Yeah. After you typed in the name, go ahead and hit create panel.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's just keep getting on my
Which are you and let's see if we can join the second Wi-Fi there. I think it's just like timing out, so I'm running this as well.
You copy it over, you clear all my panels out before you copy it.
Oh, it's just creating it. No, I'm on.
Yeah, my settings, what, it's just yeah, right.
If you're getting errors, I would say that it's probably just not wanting. So that's why. We should actually open another tab, but you can't directly. It's starting out like multiple tabs. It's not those will actually it should be fine. Let's try it. That's your hot pot, right?
I don't have anything attached to it right now.
Nothing short of you might actually have a demo. I don't know. I think cool. Yeah.
Because we store the identity and the digital stuff, so it's you kind of know those particularly weird problems. No. Yeah, maybe do a full page refresh. The other thing is, Chrome does that's what you can apply.
No, he has the same thing. Did you get the air? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I got you.
I guess I'm gonna just walk through and just show it for you, just show it up here. Since we're having just call it the demo account. Seems like maybe we don't know if it's the Wi-Fi or what's going on, but this will make things a little easier. So I'll do that. I'm not sure exactly what you end up with maybe other things going on or whatever, but it's honestly the interactivity of it. After we've created a panel, you might have 3 panels now, depending on if you got that here or not. What we want to do is create the view, just like Brian was talking about. We'll give it a view name. I'm going to call it annual sales. And create view. And I'm going to expand this out a little bit. I'll hit select. That brings it up to, I've got a very clean screen here with just my bezel shared, but I'm going to create one. So again, kind of back to track where we're at. We're going to just do a little 2D chart, something very simple. So I'm going to create bezel. And next I'm going to go to template. From here you get the template screen. This is showing you all the ways you can turn your data into a chart. And everything on here, again, I'll reiterate, follows the same steps. So after you know how to do one of these, you'll know how to do all of these. So we're going to do the area 2D. And that brings us to our wizard here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give the bezel name. So I'm going to check and see. I decided to call it simple chart. Next, pick our provider. Just kind of rehash a little bit of this. It does in my data broker. That's where we're pulling the data from. We're grabbing something from within our network back in Wadsworth. Next, pick our connection. We only got one, so that's an easy answer. Then we're going to pick our resource. Now, tomorrow we'll get into the nuance about how you can really refine this list down if you're actually pushing this to, self-service end users getting their own data. How you can really just drop this down when there's only like, 1 or 2 things on there they're allowed to see. Right now we're kind of got the mother load here, so.
One quick thing. If anybody who's struggling to better create a sample, make sure that your username is on the lowercase t font. It seems like there's something weird about that where it's accepting like demo with a capital G, but users are actually set up with a lowercase t, and probably find this one.
Okay. And on the back of the badges, we all have uppercase T, so that's why.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, resource-wise, we're going to be using the Excel plugins. There's a lot of other stuff on that list. The Excel plugin is like very nice and easy because we've got a lot of people with different systems, different databases, but everybody most likely has Excel. So easy to get your head around. The Excel plugin, it has, when you hit the drop down here, you can see that it does one of 2 things. You can either get data from an Excel spreadsheet, or you can write a file. You can write a file, a brand new Excel file, or you can append an existing Excel file. We're going to do get data here. Next, you'll see it's asking for the full path to the Excel file. Now, the one thing to keep in mind here, this is the full path to your Excel file within your network. So, if you were if on your server it was at C:\data, and you're on your computer, it needs to be something that's where the server sees it from. Usually, that's going to be a network path to it. The other important thing to do or to be aware of: do not use mapped network drives here. Bezlio Remote Data Broker is running as a service within your network. So it's not logged in. It's not a person sitting there at a Windows desktop. It's a service. So it has no idea about mapped network drives and things like that. It just knows paths to files on the network. So you need kind of a full paths listed there. Last point to make is, depending on the permissions of this share you're pointing to within your network, Bezlio Remote Data Broker may need to have permissions to that folder. So like, for example, if you've got a super secret Excel file that only administrators are allowed into, and you've got Bezlio Remote Data Broker running as a regular user, it's not going to be able to see that folder, just like if anybody else wouldn't be able to see that folder. So just be mindful about permissions and things like that. So what we're going to do, and I do have a bit of a long URL, I guess, here for y'all to type in, but it's //prod backup /mainspring /demo, and then the XX, that's your username, so like your folder, /annualsales.xlsx. So this is, as you can probably tell, this is on our network drive. That's, even though the server's called prod backup, it's actually our file server. And we've got a shared folder called Mainspring. And then when you FTP'd in, you saw those folders, that's the subfolders within that shared network drive there. I'll leave this up while you all have a chance to type all that in.
It's kind of space or an underscore.
Oh, that is good question. That should be a. Let me double check. Yeah. Let me know. Is there extra space there? Was a space, yeah. Okay.
Some spaces in there.
Yeah. Questionable best practices, but I'm going to copy that in myself here, and I've got the luxury of a copy and paste. You all don't get that. I'll put that back up for you. Oops. Everybody else is actually in the same point. Oh, okay, cool. Next thing then is sheet name. So recall when we were looking at that sheet that we called sheet 1. But we called it, sales or whatever you want to call it, just literally put the sheet name in there. So sheet 1.
You have a spreadsheet, multiple workbooks in it?
Yeah.
It's just
Absolutely. Yep. And then last we have first row column names. So, if your spreadsheet has that row 1, has all your column names, you want this to be set to yes, otherwise you want it set to be no. Pretty straightforward. Now there's another box down here you'll see where it says sheet data, and it says data will be written, only used for write file. So that's saying if you use write file that you would, fill something in there, otherwise leave it alone. So just leave that blank. Let's go ahead and hit next. Yep. Meeting. Just. So just now we're going to catch up. You can use XLSX or XLS. We do, even though there's a different file format, the plugin itself is capable of understanding which one you're trying to talk about. But really, there shouldn't be any sort of issue. Now, when we get to the write file, actually writing an Excel file, it's only capable of writing XLSX. We had to kind of cut that off somewhere in the library that we use to write Excel files. Which maybe if you previously were working with Bezlio back when we only supported ODBC, it's like the opposite messaging I would have told you then. So I would have said everything had to be XLS. So next that brings us to kind of the middle slice here. The middle slice is essentially the part that really varies based off of whichever template you used. If you would, we're picking a chart here. So chart is very simple. I just need to know what the label is, what the value is. If I'd be picking a grid, I'd be needing to know what columns you want to show, which ones do you want to hide. If it was a calendar, I'd need to know what's the dates column and what's the the description column. So this part does vary slightly, but it's intended to be a place where you can kind of pop in here and just answer a few questions and get on your way. So for label, we want to select the month column. Let's double check that. I probably could have labeled this a little bit better. So like month and year, essentially, but that's the column I want to show for it. And then for value, we're going to select sales. So from here, we're going to hit next. And you'll see that data turned into a 2D chart. Not the previous 2D chart, but turned into a 2D chart. But that is why we've got all of these options over here. You can kind of take this and tweak it and make it look however you like. So I'm going to recommend a few tweaks to this. Is anybody not to this point yet? Where we've got, oh. White screen of death. So if you didn't get to this point, you're almost there. All you have to do is pick the label with month and the value of sale. So essentially, all the columns will be back. It has no way to tell what's the level of the column or the value column. So this is where it's talking about. Okay. Okay. So from here, like I said, there is a lot of options. Along this left-hand side here, you can expand and collapse all these little segments, and you'll see there are a ton of different things you can tweak about how this thing works. If you're not certain, like if it's not apparent what anything is, you can actually hover over top of it, and it does give you a little hint about what that property is actually controlling for that chart there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take under functional attributes, there's a value called palette colors. I'll just do this quick on my end, then I'll show it to you. I'll leave that screen up so you all can see it. Functional. There we go. Palette colors. I can't unfortunately see the, yeah. So after you type the value in there and tab out of it, you should see the chart get updated automatically with the value and put in there. So this is just one of many different color settings for the different attributes here, but this one kind of makes it pop now a little bit more than that default gray. Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. Yep. So it's F8BD19. That is a, if you're not familiar, that is a web color code. Now most of the other color attributes within the left-hand side, you actually see when you click on it, it brings up a color picker for it. This one in particular doesn't, because if you actually hover over the help on it, it actually tells you can specify multiple colors in this, and I don't know exactly the use case for that. We'll get into where you find out the documentation in a moment, but there's really no way for us to replicate that without what it has there. So the other cosmetics we'll do for the background color, border color. This is under the chart cosmetics group. Background color, border color, canvas border color. We're just going to pick white for each of those. Not sure on that. So for these, border color example, you can just click on that and it brings up a little color picker, so it's a little bit easier to type in those values. And none of that's important to the functionality of what we're doing here. It's just kind of illustrating how you can tweak various different properties of this chart. So, I mean, ultimately, this is what it will look like after you kind of tweak all the different options. It doesn't have to look exactly like that if you have So, again, that's the basic, process. You have a query, you pick the column, hit preview, change all the properties, save it, and then it'll be in your My Bezlio. Actually, I didn't do that yet on mine. The save button is all the way down at the bottom. You guys see that? So, go ahead and hit save, and that'll show up in your My Bezlio. Now from here we can actually click that bezel and hit select. Just so that it's support that. So, supposed to be pretty straightforward to go through the creation. If you want to go a little bit off the beaten path here, let's take a few things that we might, look at this about this chart and things that might not be ideal. For one, maybe I'm pulling too much data here. If this is a SQL query, I could control specifically what, days and years and all sorts of stuff. But maybe let's say, so I'm using Excel plugin, I don't have that luxury, and I'd love to filter, I'm only seeing 2017 data. And maybe I also don't like, if I'm only seeing 2017 data, I don't like the -17 listing on each one. There's a lot of little tiny things you kind of might tweak to make this a little bit better. And a lot of that comes into the scope of advanced column selection. So all of Bezlio's, or most of the templates are based off Fusion charts. And if you go to fusioncharts.com/charts, we don't have to do this now, but just kind of for reference, you can see all the charts that are available. They have a huge selection of them with tremendous numbers of configurable options to each. So the feature of advanced column selection lets you really kind of refine the control about how these bezels work in three specific ways. One being conditional inclusion. So when I've got a data set back, deciding actually which data points are dropping onto that chart. Data formatting. You want to kind of manipulate the way that the data is dumping into the chart, like stripping off that -17 on you. Or summarization. If you've got, a chunk of data that you need to kind of churn it a little bit to kind of make it present better, then that would be, another part where this is helpful. So, in general, what you do is, let's see. Okay. Also populating any chart data properties that are not made visible in the simple selection. So when you walk through the simple selection, you only get two options. For example, for that area 2D chart, I got a label and I got a value, and that's it. But when you look at some of the documentation for Fusion charts, you'll actually see there's lots of different things you can fill in to make the chart behave differently and do different things. So using this tool also lets you fill in some of the values that might not otherwise be filled in. And we're going to do each of these in an example here. So, okay, first, let's make this for the current year only. And as I mentioned, if you're using most other plugins, you would not do this at this layer. This would be kind of silly to be doing this at this layer. If you're using the SQL plugin, you change your query just to only be looking for the current year, because then you'd be shooting all the data and then filtering it. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But in this case, it makes sense to do it here, or just kind of illustrate how you do it. So in order to do this, the first thing we're going to do is we're looking back at our bezel. We're going to go to the Edit menu and select Edit Bezel. And all this is going to do is it's going to bring us back into that same wizard that we were in before. With the only minor difference that when you're looking at the data connection bit, it might look a little bit different because we're kind of have all this kind of saved and snapshotted in here, and hopefully shouldn't need to mess with it. But so just go ahead and, on the first screen, bring it up and just hit Next. And this will be exactly the same as before. But now, instead of hitting label and value here, month of sale, we're going to hit this little guy next to Advanced. And that's going to expand this section down. And what you'll see here, this is where we actually get into a code view for them. And again, so depending on where you're coming in at on this may be something, maybe something you don't want to mess with, maybe something that but just knowing that it's here, I think it will tell us. What is here? This is actually JavaScript code that is what is currently being done to populate data into this chart that's happening. So we're looking at, I think I'm going to have a better blown up version of this code on the next screen. Oh, and I will make a quick note here that the current defaulted text here, when you're re-editing a bezel, is actually invalid. So the first time that you were going to this wizard, you would expand this down and saw it, that would be completely wrong. I'm going to show you here in the next screen. But re-editing, right now there's a minor issue with this. But if you click the little documentation button here, everything on this documentation tab is completely correct. And most of what I'm going to describe here is all written out here about how all this works. So here's the structure, and this kind of, again, is paraphrasing what is in that documentation link. Essentially, the first line you see there, where it says this, that data subscription result, that for each. And again, this is not what you're seeing on your screen now. This is what would be, you need to paste in there for this to operate. And also, if you would have looked at this the first time you're going through the wizard, this is what you would have seen. This first line, it's looping through the results of your query. It's essentially saying for each of this, and then mapping that to a variable called row. So, and then what's in between the curly braces, you can use to fill in your data via this object here. So I'm saying I'm going to push into this config.dataSource. I'm going to put the label is equal to the name column, and the value is equal to the age column. So it's a way of doing the exact same thing. In our case, this was month and sales with the two columns. It's a code representation of the exact same thing that we just did by picking those two values. So that's kind of the baseline for how a lot of this is going to operate. Now, I'm not sure, because this has a lot of stuff that I'm not going to have you type in necessarily everything I'm going to have on the next screen. So what I'll say is that all the materials for this will be available on the Mainspring site, so you can kind of walk through this next part a little bit yourself at a later time. But a few other points. All valid JavaScript is available inside. So if you just Google for, I'm actually documenting here various things where I'm just saying I did Google for it, and here's the webpage I found. That's literally it. JavaScript is one of the most documented programming languages out there, so that's very convenient. Usually the first step in trying to figure out what you can do with the chart, how you kind of tweak it, is to look to see what the data structure is that is the Fusion charts document for. So I've got a link there for Fusion charts. I'll actually open up here so you can see. So this is the list of all the fusion charts that are already built into Bezlio. There just may not be wizards for all of them. So, and again, you can scroll down through here, you can see there's a ton of options. So for example, let's say I'm going to look at the area 2D. This is kind of the developer-centric stuff, but it tells you every single option that exists with the area 2D chart. So let's scroll down here. They have this thing called the data object. This describes what the data that this chart needs is. So label and value. Those two things we're filling in, label and value, that's the base. But then also, there's all these other options down here that do lots of other crazy different things. So, for example, if I click display value here, this thing tells me that instead of showing a number, it'll actually pull out and show some text there. So if you want to say, sales were really bad this month because we lost this customer or something like that, you can replace that value just by popping that guy in there. So part of why we like these fusion charts is because of all of this. There's so many properties in here. You can make these charts do anything you can possibly imagine with them. So, but look at the data object, you kind of see what all it's supporting. So in our simple, we noted that all we were doing is filling in label and value, and the corresponding code to it. It's not super readable, but this is exactly what I was described for. We're doing a for each, or filling in the label and value from the column, month, and sales. So in order to, assume we only want to see the data for the current year. So I put what I literally Googled here, JavaScript current year, and that brings me to this W3C Schools website. You'll find that most of your JavaScript reference stuff, that will be where it's at. And I'm going to actually click on that to show you what the site actually looks like. And it's basically 2 lines of code. You basically get a date object, and then you get the year value from that date object. Unfortunately, they don't have a single line to do that, but that's how they do it. So, and this is maybe a little hard to read from there, but basically, what I'm doing is I copy those first 2 lines there, where I stored the D and the N from that JavaScript. And then I just threw an if statement around my little line of code where I'm putting the value into the chart. So I'm basically saying if the year column, which is the first column in my Excel spreadsheet, is equal to N, which would be 2017 for today, then put that data in the chart. So it's just an if statement around it. We're defining what data is plugged into the chart, even though the actual data has way more stuff in it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy this. And again, this would be hard for you all to type this in, so I'll just have you kind of follow along after you get the PowerPoint. I'm just going to paste this in here. Now at this point, I can hit next. And what you'll see is now all that 2016 data is gone. So this is one of the first aspects of using advanced column selection that you're kind of controlling of this bigger data set, what's actually going on. So now let's say, looking at this chart still, as I mentioned before, it's kind of redundant to have the -17 on there now. Let's say we just want to lop that off. So what I can do on this is JavaScript substring. Substring is kind of taking a part of a string, basically. And again, there's another nice little W3C Schools link about that. But we just basically build that into our property. Okay. So the only new part is what's highlighted here. So I basically got my same year filter, but on my label where I've got the month column, I'm doing .substring 0,3. I'm grabbing the first 3 characters. That's all it is. So again, I'm manipulating the value that's kind of being dumped in there. So copy this and paste this in. So looking a little cleaner now. So now let's say we want to annotate looking, again, pulling this chart up here. Let's say we want an annotation. Why May was so bad? We've got $80,000 and like kind of out of the norm there. And you'd like some sort of way to be able to say, this is bad because we lost such and such customer. Whatever. In that Excel spreadsheet that I had popped out, I had a little note column here. And I put one of those cells, I put Acme Corp canceled order. Yeah. But the idea being that this would be like an annotation. You can actually just start to add those little outliers. And if you recall earlier when I was talking that Fusion Chart supports that display value property in the data object, saying you could replace the value, the dollar number with that, with whatever you put in there. And this is just kind of a screenshot of that thing I was looking at, showing you earlier. So again, depending on where we're at, all we've added now is inside this little push bar here, we've got the label, we've got the value, now we've got the display value. Actually, the value didn't change there. My headline, we should have said right here, the display value. So I'm saying in the display value field, put the property note from there. So again, the illustration, the reason why I'm kind of walking through a lot of this is when you're on the Fusion Charts gallery, you're looking at all their stuff, they show off kind of a tour de force of all the different things they have. But even that, they're only touching probably 5% of the different options they have available. You can really, unlike, if you're talking about Crystal or even Excel to a certain extent, where you've kind of got a finite number of things they let you tweak, Fusion Charts has just a tremendous way to manipulate every little aspect of how these things work. And it does take a little bit of digging through their documentation to understand what everything is and play around with it, but a lot of neat little options. That's just a screen grab of what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. We're all done with this guy now. All right, so let's talk about, well, first off, before I move on, does anybody have any questions? Is that all fairly clear? If you didn't come from a JavaScript background or not, some of that might be TMI, but just that it's there to be able to do that. So, accessing the hidden templates. And I talk about these hidden templates. Basically, it's not like it's something secret. It's just that we haven't turned them into templates yet. We bought the whole library, but only a portion of them we've kind of wired up because we feel confident in the steps being easy enough for everybody to follow through using the simple tools. But every bit of it is already baked into the platform, and all you have to do is know a few quick tricks about how to access them. First off, you go to that same website that I told you had to go to, or I mentioned earlier. So again, take this website here and paste it. It's just right here still. When you're looking at all the different chart types they have, methods of JavaScript, alias, column. This is essentially the actual name of the thing, as opposed to this, which is like the pretty display name for it. So you take note of that. You also need to make sure you've noted what is in the data object or equivalent of it. So if I was looking at, for example, actually, let me pull up another thing I'd like to Google for is the Fusion Charts gallery, which kind of shows you all of these things in a graphical way. So for example, looking at the gauges section here, you can see all the different kind of gauges that they have available, and you can click on any one of those gauges and actually see what it looks like. And every one of these, they configure lots of different options and stuff like that, but they kind of show all the different functionality in here. Every one of these, they may or may not have this label and label and value pair sort of thing. I know they don't because we added all those first because they all look exactly the same. The speedometer one, though, it's a much different where you're defining what the value of the dial is and then what the values of each of the ranges are. So it's a little bit of a different kind of data object that you put into this guy. So you note that And you basically, next thing is you enter directly into Bezlio in the address bar, you enter this URL, which is like the same URL if you click on any template you would have seen instead of like area 2 in there. You can put the JavaScript alias of anyone right at the end there, and then it'll take you into the builder for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick Angular Gauge as an example here. That was the exact same one I pulled up, which is like the little speedometer looking thing. Back here, paste that in. And it's the same wizard, it's the same wizard no matter what, but you just have to do a little bit more work with it. So I'm going to call this gross margin gauge. Deal with it as my data broker, same connection, it's still using the Excel plugin, so you can get data. So using the same spreadsheet. Same sheet name. First row still yes. But when we get to the middle slice, we have no choice for any of these hidden templates. Advanced is our only option here. So now, again, I'll point out that since this is the first time I go through this code here is actually all correct this initial time, but it's still, because of the chart type, that it needs more than just label and value. We got to tell a lot more stuff. So this is it's kind of a little bit hard to see. I'm going to just copy and paste it into the browser window since it might be a little bit bigger in there. And kind of we threw some comments in here, but we kind of described to you what all we're looking at here. So we start up at line 1. So I guess let me also make sure I'm telling you what I'm trying to do here so this section makes sense. I'm trying to make a gauge like this based off of your gross profit or your gross margin. And the gauge should be basically pointing, if you're within like 30% of gross margin on average, it should be green. Otherwise it should be like yellow if it's like within like the 25%, red if it's worse than that. So just kind of a quick visualization of how things are going. And obviously you could tweak those however you like. So the first thing I've got to do doing this is I've got to declare 2 variables up there. I declared one for total year-to-date sales and total year-to-date margin. I set both of them to 0 by default. Next, I'm looping through the records the exact same way that I looped through when I was building the chart out. But this time I'm not actually putting anything in the chart object. All I'm doing is I'm basically incrementing the column for total year-to-date sales and total year-to-date margin from the corresponding sales and margin columns from the spreadsheet. And I still have the year filter in there like we had before. So I just kind of continue that along. So now it's at line 14 and after, we're now actually applying the data object for this gauge thing. The gauge needs to know 2 things. It needs to know color range, the color ranges, and the data. So for color range, you basically, and again, I got this in our documentation, I basically set and you do a color range equal, and you give it a min and max values and what the corresponding codes are for those colors. Again, these are HTML color codes, so you can go out and Google search for HTML color codes. You can find a million web pages where you can pick a color and it tells you what that little code is there. So that's just defining, the little slices on the gauge. And this one here is now deciding where I put the data. I guess one other point back on the colors is notice I'm using total year-to-date sales as the max value and the min value on some of them times a certain percent. So I'm saying from 0 to 10% of sales is red. That's a place you don't want to be at. 10% to 40% is going to be yellow, and 40% and above, the gross margin is listed as green. And now here in dials, now it's saying the actual value of the dial is total year-to-date margin. So of on sales, this one's the actual margin. So this is, essentially what resulted from that selection there. We've got the axis is showing the sales amount, and then the little arrow showing us where we're sitting at for gross margin. And what's neat about this with every bezel is that you can wire these up to be on an automatic refresh. That could be as frequent as you want, and especially with the new Signal R stuff, there's very little downside to saying, you want it every, 30 seconds. I mean, it's your database server, so it's up to you how that, you want to be up on it. But you can be sitting here watching it and, watching this thing move up and down or animate and all that good stuff. So, a lot of interesting stuff you can kind of do with that.